You are listening to the Digital Parent Podcast with your host, Ced Lewis.
Hey parents, welcome to another episode of the Digital Parent Podcast. On today's episode, we are joined by my friend Alan Katzman, who is the founder and managing member of Social Assurity LLC. Social Assurity provides social media optimization services for aspiring college students to help shape their online image. Alan has been featured on major news sites across the globe, and he was just recently featured in the New York Times on his strategy of helping one of his clients to be on the radar of Harvard University. And on this episode, Alan and I discuss how social media sites such as LinkedIn and Twitter can be used by students to attract college recruiters and admission officers. So make sure you take out a pen and pad and write down these great tips. Before we talk with Alan, a quick word about today's sponsor, Social Assurity. Hey parents, I want to introduce you to a new company called Social Assurity. Social Assurity helps students rise above the crowd of qualified college applicants by teaching students to showcase their potential to colleges, employers, auto insurance companies, and those who share their interests. By using social media properly, Social Assurity helps students create and disseminate an accurate and compelling picture of their lives via social media for a clear advantage in their recruitment process with colleges and universities. So make sure you go to socialassurity.com. That's socialassurity.com and download one of their e-courses to help your child rise above other applicants. Hey, Alan, welcome to the Digital Parent Podcast. We're so happy to have you on the show today.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Alan, we're such a big fan of your products, with Social Assurity, all of your great e-courses to help kids really clean up their social media and go to college. Kind of explain, what is Social Assurity?
Well, we're a 3-year-old company, and we were started because of, we were seeing that colleges every year increasingly were looking at student social media as part of the vetting process. We also saw that employers were looking, and in doing the research, we saw everything was based in the negative. Don't get rejected from college, by doing this. Don't get rejected from a job application for doing this. And there was nothing out there that was actually guiding students to how to create and build content, not so much for their friends, but for what we like to call the third audience, which are college admissions officers, academic and athletic scholarship committees, people looking for interns, and people looking for to hire students right out of school. So we saw this as a skill that needed to be taught and refined rather than simply don't post this and don't post that. So it was on this idea that we started Social Assurity back in 2013.
So let me get this straight, Alan. You guys are not really auditing people's social media profiles. You're more helping students by teaching them how to enhance their profile to be seen by colleges and employers.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. We do offer an auditing service where we would go in with just the name of the student and their email address, pretty much what a college admissions office would have or an employer would have. And what we would do is show how they come off. So we would look in the audit, are they easily discoverable? Because, we share our names with a lot of other people. So, there's this issue of mistaken online identity. So we want to make sure that they know if they're competing with other people that share their name. And then what we do, we look at what comes up. And unlike algorithms that, may look for 4-letter words, racist or violent words, or scanned photos for beer bottles, we take a holistic view when we do our audits. But what we found as we developed as a company, that's really not that important. because we do know that if colleges are looking, right, they're not looking to find reasons to reject students. They're looking to learn more about the student, right? College admissions, we all know, is so competitive these days. And we thought that we can teach these students how to use LinkedIn, how to use Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all these platforms that are heavily indexed by Google, and how to use them not only to create reflective content, right, that basically will create a portrait of who they are to these schools, but also teach them techniques on networking, on using LinkedIn to find actionable resources about college decisions or employment decisions, how to use Twitter to network and engage with these communities, whether they're communities of people who share your interests, or maybe a college community. If you know you want to go to a certain school to study, let's say, political science, you might want to follow on Twitter some political science professors or the School of Political Science at the college you're interested in. See what they're writing about and engage with them. For those students who are more visually oriented, to set up an Instagram account where they can actually build a portfolio of, maybe their own artwork or photography or designs. And what we're seeing, and it's been written about a lot, it was in the New York Times and for the past week in Forbes and Teen Vogue, what we're seeing is that if you put a link to a social media site on your application, chances are very good that the colleges are going to click on it. And that, opens up to providing them a lot more information. And, as we say to our students isn't it better to use social media to take control of your narrative, to take control of what you want these people to see, rather than not doing anything, and then if they do decide to search for you, they'll see content that you're just, posting among your friends, right? Which is not really directed to tell your story or send a message to these people. So we're looking for the proactive, productive use of social media, and it's working. If you think about it, we hand our children these devices, and they don't come with user manuals, and social media doesn't come with user manuals. And then we criticize them or discipline them for making youthful mistakes, but we never taught them the rules. They really don't know, for the most part, that anything they post, anywhere they post it, is discoverable by anybody with an interest in finding it. And so what we do, we step back and we teach these fundamentals so they know the rules of the platforms that they're now engaging on. And then once they have that basis, then we kind of elevate the knowledge that people are looking, whether it's, as we said before, colleges, scholarships, internships, employers, future landlords, auto insurance companies, future spouses, on and on and on. So it's really incumbent, and for students and also for us adults, to understand that people are checking this out to learn more about us. And if they're doing that, we should really understand how to produce content and put content out there that people are more likely to see and which tells the story we want to be told.
You know what, Alan, you're so right. And I want to go back to what you just said about putting links on their application, because I don't know if parents are doing this. I know people probably putting their social media links, but are you guys teaching the parents to put maybe a link to a blog, or is that a part of your course? You're teaching kids how to set up blogs so that all of this great information that's out there, pictures, videos of extracurricular activities, is in one place so that a recruiter can go to that blog and learn more about the application or the applicant or the student?
We're very, very, very insistent upon blogs. When we speak to students, We tell them that there is nothing that they can do in this world that their employer or the people they work with will not value their ability to write or their ability to analyze and assess. And, I usually tell this story. I have a daughter who graduated college in 2015. But when she was a sophomore in high school, she had agreed to help me clean out the basement. And very quickly, once we were down there, she found my old crate of record albums. And once I convinced her that, these play music, she was insistent. She wanted to hear them. And so I found my old turntable, set it up, and I pulled out what I thought were classic, great music albums. And she listened to a couple, and she was hooked. And then she asked me, this is back, 7 or 8 years ago. She said, "Dad, can I write a blog?" And it was the first time I ever heard the word. And I said, "Is it safe?" And she started laughing. She said, "Of course. No, it's just I want to write about these albums and I want to set up a blog." And she did. So she set up a site, I think it was called For the Love of Vinyl. And what she would do is take a photo of the album cover and put that on the blog. And then she would Google the album. She found out when it was released. She found out what was going on in this country and or in the world at the time. And then she did a critique of the album. She did about 4 albums sophomore year, maybe another 4 junior year. And then when she was a senior in high school, maybe she did 1 or 2 more before she got distracted with college, applications and everything that goes with it. But the beauty of it is that it was out there. So she went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and freshman year they had the freshmen set up LinkedIn profiles, and she put the link to her blog on the profile. Done. 2 years later, she's a junior, and this is where it gets fun. 2 years later, she's a junior, and when she gets up to school, she gets an email from Sony Music. Yeah, get this. "Dear Nicole, we came across your LinkedIn profile. We see that you're a student at University of Wisconsin in Madison. We're looking for an intern to do advanced PR work for college bands coming through the Madison area. We see, we've read your blog and see your enthusiasm and love of music, and hope you, join us and accept this internship." She never applied for this internship. She didn't know this internship existed. They found her, right? They searched LinkedIn. They were probably looking for students in Madison. And when they came across her LinkedIn and saw that she had this blog about, critiquing record albums, and they can see that she has this appreciation for music, they knew that she was the person they wanted. She accepted. She did it. She did her work that semester for them. And as a thank you, they must have had 20, 25 interns around the country. They flew them all into New York for a weekend at Sony headquarters, where they got to meet Sony executives. She connected with those executives on LinkedIn. Okay? The following year, senior year, she got another subsidiary of Sony Music, asked her to do pretty much the same thing, which she did. And then a couple of months before she graduated, she reached out to these people. And she said, "Hey, it was great working with you. Just as an update, I'll be graduating in May, and I want to move back to New York City, and I would like to get involved in some digital marketing for startups." And one of the executives who remembered her said, "I was just talking to somebody who is looking for people just like you. Can I pass along your name?" And she got the job. So
that's amazing.
Well, this is happening all the time. So when we speak to students to try to put it into perspective, right? I would ask students, have you ever bought anything online? Or have you ever decided to buy something and then go online to read reviews to make sure that you made the right decision? And everybody raises their hand, right? And I said, so let's say you're going online, you want to buy, I don't know, a new phone, all right? Or maybe that's a little bit too easy. Let's say you want to buy a camera, and you put on Google, a point and shoot camera. The first thing that's going to come up, right, is Amazon. Amazon, gets that high thing, and you may follow it through, and you learn which cameras are available. You'll look, and you'll see, which has the information and good responses from people who've bought it. And I say to them, think about you. If someone was looking for you, they're going to do take the same steps as you would do in figuring out what product to buy. But the problem is, if you went online, I could have the greatest camera in the world at the best price, but if I don't have a discoverable, informative presence online, nobody's going to buy my camera because they don't know I exist.
Now, Alan, you just brought up a good point about, when you search online for a product and how Amazon dominates because they have such a high Alexa, I think is what you call it, rating. So they're always going to be number one, number two. If you have a student and the student has the same name as another student, and maybe the other student has questionable character or whatever, what's the strategy or the tips so that the student that you guys are working with is at the top of the list? So when you go into Google and search for their name is number one, not number 4 or number 5, so that admission officers clearly know that, it's that child.
Well, we go into that in depth in our courses. So we offer overview courses, which covers this, which explains why social media is so important for college admissions. We then just go through the fact that you're never anonymous, nothing ever disappears. But we go through all these essentials in our courses, and towards the end, we get into this issue of mistaken identity, and we have definitive techniques. And without, giving too much information
sure.
To your audience, it has to do with how you go about establishing who you are within Google. And there's definitive steps. So Google will know that it's, the Alan Katzman from New York City. But then we also, we build on that. And as you said, Amazon has a great rating. It's always the first. Well, if you Google me, and I have a pretty large digital footprint. I've been written up, just last weekend in the New York Times, in Forbes, Teen Vogue, Huffington Post. We have a website. I've published a number of articles. But if you Google my name, the first or second entry for Alan Katzman that you can see in a Google search is LinkedIn. So really, LinkedIn is the Amazon for employers.
Wow.
and for colleges. So between our overview course and then we have a LinkedIn Essentials for Students course, which is very, very, very unique because it teaches students who don't have a professional experience. It teaches students how to build a compelling LinkedIn presence that authentically reflects them, but we really focus in on their activities in high school, either in school or their activities, sometimes more importantly, out of school. Maybe the community service they do through student organizations or volunteering they're doing through their church group, or maybe they don't have a lot of activities because they have family responsibilities. There's a lot of really talented students out there who are in a home where they have to, maybe after school, they have to go pick up their younger siblings from their school and take care of them in the afternoon. And so they can't get involved in school activities because they have these other more important responsibilities. So we, through the LinkedIn course, we're challenging students to create this digital portfolio, looking at everything they do, but also teaching them how to find what we call, the soft skills, the important attributes, right, of responsibility, commitment,
dependability,
time management, leadership, work ethic, problem solving, and to present themselves in that fashion. And we believe LinkedIn is really important because all of the colleges have a presence on LinkedIn. There's great actionable resources as far as interacting or maybe seeking some alumni where you may be interested in going as a mentor. For most of us, we can find on LinkedIn someone who graduated the high school that we're currently attending, who also graduated a college that we're interested in going, right?
Right.
And maybe working in a job that is what we currently think we want to do. And you can find these people very easily on LinkedIn, which is why it's, I think, a great platform for high school students. And, more importantly, LinkedIn, I think there's over 150 million Americans on LinkedIn. And, you want your profile to be public because, again, going back to that analogy of the e-commerce, right? If someone is looking for you, and sometimes they may not be looking for you by name, right? They'll be looking for you by skill, location, interests. I heard a story. I heard a story in connection with the New York Times article where a student put up a LinkedIn profile, and her skills, she was fluent in 4 languages. All right, and within 2 weeks, or a really short period of time after putting up her LinkedIn profile, she was contacted by a major technology company. She had these 4 languages. They were looking for somebody with these 4 languages. If she didn't have that LinkedIn profile, they would have never found her. So again, it's this online presence. I challenge students to, what are the 5 keywords or the 5 phrases or items that if someone was looking for you, right, and it won't be by name necessarily, but what are the key points that you would want to highlight so you would get picked up in a search? And, these are methods that we've come up with over the years that are very understandable by students. And the feedback that we've gotten on all of our courses, whether it be Twitter, LinkedIn, or our overview courses, both from students, parents, and educators, has been overwhelmingly positive. So, they're very engaging. They speak to the student. They take away a lot of the stress that most people would think. Most people say, well, my kid doesn't have enough time for this. But it's not that time. It's not that time consuming to get this done and to understand how social media can work for you.
So, Alan, how do you talk to that parent who's a little bit hesitant about their child being very public on social media, and they just have this fear that maybe a predator, somebody may be in contact with their kid? How do you convince that parent that, hey, it's okay to allow your child to be free on social media so they can get this attention and this attraction from employers and from colleges and universities?
That is a great question. And, I call that the 800-pound gorilla in the room.
Right.
Because when I do speak a lot at parent events for schools, and the question always comes up, and I actually now proactively address it. And And I said, look, there's a few ways. You have to have the conversation with your child, because what we do know is from all the stats, we know that about I think it's 95% of teens are active on social media. And we do know that they've moved away, their activity has moved away from Facebook because parents and grandparents and extended family and teachers are all on Facebook, and they don't want that. They don't want them to see it. So, they started moving at first to Instagram, and then to Snapchat under the false promise that what they put out there would disappear. And they're moving further and further away from what we would call mainstream social media. And, so I tell the parents that chances are, they've compromised their privacy a long time ago. And they probably have. Again, that's why we believe that proactive social media education is so important, to let them know. And it's not just scaring kids, about don't cyberbully, don't sext, beware of predators. We have to step back and empower them with the knowledge of how all this works. So that sets the stage. The next thing is that they're entering into a world, right, that is using social media as a large database to find people to fill opportunities. So, there's a pragmatic decision here. I don't know. I mean, I respect people who may want to stay private, but the world is moving in this opportunity where and I hate saying it, but you're a product and you want people to find you. And when they do find you, you want to make sure you have compelling information, good references, that you're a person they want to bring into their college community or their employment community. So I'm not sure that the privacy concern, okay, is that compelling. And we don't advocate that they should put down their home address. We don't advocate that they should put down their date of birth. We don't advocate that they should, put in a lot of, real detailed PII. But, they should create a separate email address, a professional one that contains their name, to the fullest extent possible, and use that as the point of contact. And they have a dedicated email. And the last thing I'll say on it, and I learned this from raising my kids through the social media age. They're so good at identifying fake accounts that it's scary.
Right, they are. They're experts at it.
They're experts at it. They know they can sniff a fake account a mile away, much better than we can. And there's solace in that as a parent, because that's what they've had to learn how to do. Because where they're engaging far away from us, right? That's survival for them, and it's very, very well tuned, and they can see it a mile away. And I trust that they for the most part they can sniff it. But what we're talking about here, putting out a really productive LinkedIn account, learning how to engage with communities, using Twitter to expand your network and feeding people in so that they can, see who you are. You use your Twitter profile at 160 characters to the max. You put your link to your LinkedIn page so they can come through that. We're seeing this work time and time again.
With Twitter, are you teaching the students to tweet to the schools like information from their LinkedIn profile?
No. It's much more. We're teaching them how to search and follow and create lists. We teach how to selectively begin engaging in conversation, right, to be found, to be seen. We're not advocating just tweeting right to schools. We're I think a little bit more sophisticated than that. No, and I mean that we want them to start to learn how to use Twitter to meet people and how to slowly start engaging and getting these people to get interested in them. But I want to just close a circle on something before. You had mentioned earlier blogs, and I had said the story about my daughter, and she had set up her own blog. I think it was Blogger. I'm not really sure, maybe WordPress. But about 2 years ago, LinkedIn became a publishing site,
yes,
a publishing platform. And we encourage the students we work with to use that as their publishing platform. We think, as you said before, you said a very key point, that it's great when everything's in one place. And because LinkedIn is so heavily indexed by Google, by keeping it all within LinkedIn, we think it really serves a very persuasive and compelling purpose. So I want to just mention that we're big believers in the importance of blogging, and people say, well, what should I blog about? And we say, anything you want. Right? There's no rule. As long as it's something that interests you, you can blog about current events, or if you're interested in a field of study, something that may be happening there, maybe something you did at school, service, community service, group projects. These are great things to blog about. So there's no set rule, but we do recommend that if you're in high school, write a blog once every 4 months. It's 500 to 700 words, and it could be, in any format you want it, but put it up there. And then if you're in 10th grade or 11th grade, by the time you're applying to college, you're going to have 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 entries. And I think it's really compelling.
I want to go back to LinkedIn because I think it's something that we haven't discussed yet with LinkedIn. I think the component of the site where you can do testimonials. So when you gave the example of the kid that's, taking care of their sister, brother, or taking care of maybe somebody that's elderly in the community, somebody can do a testimonial on their LinkedIn profile to shout them out and say, hey, I know Johnny since he was 12. He always helps his grandmother. He always take care of his sisters, to kind of build that character so that those schools can see that information.
Absolutely. We talk about that, the testimony, the reference, right? The recommendation, they call it, the recommendations. And we teach students how to get those. And every activity that they put on, if they can get a recommendation associated with that, wow, right? Wow.
That's awesome. Now, one quick question about the parents. I want to flip the conversation about the parents and talk about the parents that are very excited about your courses. They're ready to go. They've heard your presentation. They've been on the site. They're a big fan of Social Assurity, but now they have to sell their child on the product, because these kids, they love the social aspect of social media, like, getting followers and getting likes. But now they have to change the conversation to be a little bit more serious. How do you kind of coach that parent who's super excited, but they got to now motivate their child to be excited?
Well, it's what's important. We say, I think teens having fun on social media, there's nothing wrong with that. As long as they know that they're never anonymous, right, and that nothing disappears, I think it tends to self-regulate their behavior. But for parents, what we want to do, one of the things that's missing in this generation is almost like a generational gap, right? Because parents don't understand, for the most part, what their kids are doing online. And the kids aren't going to their parents because their parents can't really guide them because they don't understand it. So our parent course, does teach about all the sites that their kids may be on, We work through the growth of social media. We talk about how it's being used in college admissions and employment and scholarship decisions, and then we give them techniques. And it's that parents have such a great influence over their children, and it's something they can do together. Because if you think about it, most teenagers, 10th graders, right, are not going to have a LinkedIn account or not going to have a Google Plus profile. So, at the start, everybody can sit down with, take the course and then with a clean slate, build a profile that doesn't, it's not going to conflict with what they're doing with their friends on Snapchat or Instagram. Right? It's very separate. And I think what's the most important piece here is that if somebody looks for them, again, if they're building a presence on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, if somebody searches for them, those are going to be the first three things that they're going to come across. And that's what they're going to see. They're not going to get to the Tumblr blog, which may be a little bit off color.
Right.
They're not going to get to the Ask FM chat, right? Or the Vines. Vine is closing down, so it's not a great example. But they're going to see they're going to see what Google tells them this is the most important. And I think, especially as you hit 16 years old, and if people do maybe look beyond your LinkedIn or your public-facing Twitter or Instagram, and they go further down, at least they'll see this kind of, deflection point, where all of a sudden maybe, oh, look, this person is starting to post more reflective content. They're maturing. They're realizing that the world is a bigger place. And I don't know of any college or employer that's going to disqualify somebody for something they posted as a 14 or 15-year-old.
Al, you just brought up a great point that I don't think that many parents understand is that, whatever these kids are doing on apps, Snapchat, Kick, Tinder, whatever it is, it's not really going to have a lot of weight on their online presence. Because when you search for people online, like you said, LinkedIn is always going to be number one, Facebook number two, probably Twitter number three. Those are the things that are going to come up, not things that you're doing on mobile apps. So that could be a place for kids to still have that identity, to be fun, and be able to be social. But when it comes to the online presence, that's where you want to really be at the LinkedIn, the Twitter stage to promote yourself as a personal brand. Yes.
I don't use the word personal brand, but that's kind of what it is. But that's it. And they're not mutually exclusive, but we have to teach. The reason why we stress this educational approach is because parents may see their kids connected to a device. I think the latest number was about on average 11 hours a day. Their use of it does not make them skilled users.
Correct.
And what we have to do is teach them that everything they post, everything, no matter where it is, right, is ultimately discoverable. And that anybody with an interest in finding it can find it. Some may be, some items may be more difficult to find than others, but it's still discoverable. And what we do is we teach them, well, let's leverage that. Right? Let's build a easy to find, discoverable presence on these, we call them the digital interstates, right? The big highways, the Facebook. And everybody's going to go to Facebook to check you out on a character assessment, to vet you, right? But it's kind of like the e-commerce again, where, the more information there is about a product, the more likely you are to buy, right?
Right.
And that's what we want. We want them to create content. We call it the third audience. It's unknown. You don't know who's going to be checking on you or searching for someone just like you or vetting you for an opportunity. So the parent and the student can really do this together. And that's where the parents can leverage their experience and insight into what may be important. Or, some of this is a little bit intimidating for a 16-year-old. We get it. But, we also talk to college students about this. And the idea of networking online with people who aren't of your age group, it's intimidating. And parents can really help on that because, I was just talking to a group of college students last week, and I keep reminding them that the best time to network is when you don't have anything to ask for, right? You don't want to start networking when you need a job because nobody's going to respond to you. But if you network and say, hey, I'd like to meet you where you are and what you've done. I'm a high school student, and can I have a few minutes of your time for your guidance? Who's going to say no to that?
That's an excellent point. It's like now it's time for kids to kind of get out there and start networking. There's no pressure on them. Now's the time to build up those, extracurricular activities, those volunteer situations where they can really build their profile, build their resumes for these universities.
Absolutely. And without going in, because there's so many things that are happening right now, but in the world of college admissions, last year there was Harvard issued a report called Turning the Tide, which basically said that, we're looking for, the way college admissions is running today is all it's producing is overstressed overachievers, and it's not good. So let's shift this. Let's take the pressure off these standardized tests and the stress of these standardized tests and the amount of money the parents spend on it is crazy. And they said, we want good citizens. We want students of good character. And so we're looking for maybe genuine service instead of taking 12 AP courses, right? Maybe you take one or two in the subject areas that are most interesting to you and use the other time, use the time to give back to your community. We don't want to see a bucket load of activities. We'd rather see one or two activities that you have a true commitment to, where you started at an early age and you've stayed with this activity, whether it's playing a musical instrument, a sport, a club, whatever, but where you've shown that this is who you are. And maybe if you're fortunate enough through your high school years, you've become an officer of the group or a captain of the team. This is reality. And this is what's important, because if you have 30 activities, chances are when you go to the college, you're not going to do anything.
You know what, Alan? That's a great point. I don't think parents understand this concept, because I think as a parent, you're so focused on scholarship to get your kid into college. You want them involved in all these activities, but not understanding that a college is going to have anywhere from 10 to 100,000 students, and they don't want people with all these different, experiences. They want one person who's really skilled at photography. They want one person who plays, the hell out of a saxophone. They want one person that knows how to teach. They want one dynamic person that makes them stronger as a university.
Absolutely. They want people who will continue this engagement in this activity in college. That's what they want. And they realize that the kids who may have one or two activities but are truly dedicated to it because they love it, they're not doing it to pad their college application, right? They're doing it because they want to. Chances are that student, once they get into that school, will continue that activity. And that's what they want. So, this is really counterintuitive to what we've all been told. But if you see where it's trending, and as far as de-emphasis on standardized tests, colleges are saying, you know what, we're going to look outside of high school related activities, because there may be fundamental activities that a lot of students are doing, family responsibilities, service, volunteering. This is all really important stuff. And there's nothing like LinkedIn or social media, whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook, to talk about these activities and show pictures of them and show your commitment. We had one student, her love in life was horses. So from a very young age, she started riding horses and she got good at it, and she started riding competitively. She worked at a stable. She cleaned out stables. She, from 8 to 18, she fell off the horses. She got injured. She had to clean the horses, clean the stables. She won competitions, and she put together this beautiful Instagram account that showed these 10 years of her commitment and her passion for horses. And it told an amazing story, a story you couldn't have written in 600 words. Now, she got into the school she wanted to, but, she didn't go in for competitive horse riding or veteran, to go to veterinary school. She just saying, this is who I am. This is what I love to do. And she was able to demonstrate it through an Instagram portfolio. And I just think this kind of stuff, thinking out the box, using social media to extend the reach of your application. And as we're seeing, in the story in the Times, and we can end on this, there was this student who last year at Harvard, one of their supplemental questions was, I'll paraphrase, is there anything you want us to know about you that you haven't already disclosed in the application? His response was, no, I think I've said everything I wanted to say, but if you want to learn more about me, check out my LinkedIn profile. And he put in his LinkedIn URL. The beauty of LinkedIn, right, as we all know, us older people, is that you get notified if somebody checks out your profile. 2 weeks after submitting his college application, he got notified that someone at Harvard College looked at his profile. And he was ultimately one of the lucky 5% or a little bit under 5% who applied to Harvard who were accepted.
So real quickly, Alan, for parents out there, how successful has your courses with Social Assurity helped kids land scholarships all over the place?
Well, we don't measure that. We've had, our sampling we're growing pretty quick. But our sampling is that we're seeing people reporting back, we're getting engagement. One more story. 2 years ago, I spoke at a Catholic all-boys high school in San Diego. They invited me back a few weeks ago, so 2 years later to come back. So there was a student who was a sophomore who heard me speak 2 years ago. After I spoke a couple of weeks ago, he came up to me and he said, Mr. Katzman, is it a good thing if Harvard is following me on Twitter and liking some of my tweets? And I looked at him and I said, you listened to me 2 years ago, didn't you, Sean? And he said, yes, and it's great. So he's got a LinkedIn profile and he's now a senior. His goal is to get into an Ivy League school, and he's been doing a lot of these things that we teach. And, all I can tell you to answer your question is it can't hurt.
Right.
One of the things the colleges are saying is that if you get tens of thousands of people applying for a couple of thousand seats, they say 80% of the students who apply to, let's say, the top 50 schools, right, the most selective schools in the country, 80% or so of those who apply are qualified to get in. So how much can you really tell from a student between GPA and a standardized test score in a 600-word essay? So if you can tell them, because it's all electronic, so put in a link, hey, here's more about the activity that I highlighted in my essay. They all say you have to be able to stand out, to set yourself apart from all these other qualified applicants. And, and sometimes it's as simple as just highlighting that, for the 4 years in high school, I was responsible from my younger brothers and sisters. And maybe you blog about it, that, like we said before, how it taught you responsibility, commitment, resilience, because maybe there were days that you wanted to do something else, but you had to take care of your brothers and sisters. These are things that a lot of talented students never think about writing about, but it's very, very compelling because these students are much more mature, have lived life, understand what responsibility and commitment and time management is more than their peers. So this is all a vehicle, as I said, to tell your story. And we need to embrace this in a very positive way because this is their future. Social media is not going away, and it's becoming much more than just a platform to speak with friends. We have to teach this elevated juice. We have to teach them how this all works and how it's being used, because it's the world that they're going to be entering, not only for college, but then whether it's grad school or their career, they're going to be judged by how they come off on social media.
Well, Alan, you know what? We gave a lot of great tips to parents on this podcast to how to get their kids jump-started on LinkedIn, Twitter, to really get going. Now, how can parents find your e-courses and where should they go, to find out about Social Assurity, all the things you guys are doing so they can get started today?
I would suggest just going to our website, which is Social Assurity, ASSURITY.com. We have all the courses available online, but we stand by to answer any questions. There's a lot of prompts on our website if you want to send us an email with any questions. If you want to bring us to your school to speak, to discuss this, because we do sell these licenses to schools in bulk at a much lower cost than what's available maybe to a family on a website. So, the more schools we can speak to and bring this in as an added part of their curriculum, the better. Our mission here is to get this word out. We think it's that important.
Well, great. Thank you so much for being on the show, Alan.
It was great. Thank you for inviting me again. I hope your audience likes what we have to say.
All right. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Hey, parents, I hope you really learned a lot from that episode with Alan. He gave us a lot of information that we can start right now in order to enhance our kids' social profile, especially on LinkedIn. I think we really went into a lot of detail on LinkedIn. But also make sure you go to his site, socialassurity.com. Sign up for one of his e-courses. I will be straight up and tell you that there's thousands of people out there that are trying to sell you personal branding type of products that cost thousands of dollars. Alan's e-courses with Social Assurity is only a fraction of that cost, and you would get it 10 times back once your child gets a scholarship to the college of their dreams. So make sure you check them out at socialassurity.com, and make sure you also go to iTunes and rate this episode of the Digital Parent Podcast and let us know what you think. Until the next time.